They were bred for battle, forged in the hunt, and destined for greatness. From royal halls to modern homes, their story is one of power, patience, and heart. They are the gentle Titans, the Great Danes. Long before they walked the polished floors of castles, their ancestors thundered across the plains of ancient Babylonia and Egypt. On temple walls and clay tablets, carvings show tall, narrow-waisted dogs running beside warriors and kings, creatures built for speed and strength, their purpose written in every stride. From those early warhounds came the mastiffs and greyhounds, bloodlines that would one day merge into something extraordinary. As centuries passed, traders and conquerors carried these dogs north into Europe. There, among forests filled with boar and bear, nobles sought a creature both graceful and lethal. A dog that could face danger head-on, yet walk beside a prince without breaking rhythm. They succeeded. The early boarhounds of Germany were immense, elegant, and fearless. They chased wild boars through tangled woods, holding their ground until the hunter arrived. To face a cornered boar was to stare death in the eyes, and these dogs never blinked. But their courage wasn't their only gift. They possessed something rarer: composure. They didn't snarl without cause, didn't strike without command. They embodied control, the balance between thunder and silence. By the Middle Ages, the German aristocracy had claimed them as their own. No noble estate was complete without towering dogs patrolling its halls. At banquets, they stood behind chairs like living statues. On hunts, they led the charge. Their size inspired awe, their loyalty respect. They became symbols of both power and discipline, strength that served, not ruled. When strangers entered the gates, these dogs didn't bark in panic. They simply looked, and that was enough. Their gaze alone separated threat from friend. Over generations, careful breeding refined the type. The heavy bone of the mastiff blended with the long frame of the greyhound, creating the perfect harmony between endurance and elegance. They could sprint like coursers and stand like guardians, poised yet unpredictable, a living paradox of grace and might. By the 17th century, they were known as Kammerhunde, or chamber dogs, trusted protectors of sleeping princes. They lay across doorways, their bodies forming living barriers between rulers and assassins. Many carried gilded collars engraved with royal crests, proof that even in the world of men, these dogs held rank. Yet despite their grandeur, the bond remained personal. There are letters from dukes and generals describing their dogs not as possessions, but as companions of courage and soul. One wrote, "He fears nothing but my sorrow." It was this combination, ferocity and empathy, that made the Great Dane unique. They were bred for battle, yet born to understand peace. As the age of empires expanded, the Great Dane became Europe's most admired breed, the guardian of nobility, the hunter of kings, and the silent witness to history. And yet the name Great Dane itself would come not from Germany but from Denmark, when naturalists in the 18th century misclassified the breed's origin. The name stayed, and the legend grew. From ancient tombs to gilded courts, one thread remained unbroken, a dog of towering frame and boundless loyalty, standing between mankind and its fears. The Great Dane was more than a hunter. It was a symbol of control, courage, and grace. And soon, the world would discover that beneath its imposing height beat the heart of a gentle giant. As Europe entered the Age of Kings, thrones were not guarded by iron walls. They were guarded by loyalty. And few symbols of loyalty stood taller than the Great Dane. From the stone corridors of German castles to the gilded salons of French palaces, the Great Dane became the living emblem of strength under control. They were the chosen companions of nobles, dukes, and monarchs, creatures that embodied the same dignity and dominance as the men who bred them. It was an era when power was displayed not only through armies, but through presence, and nothing commanded a room quite like a Great Dane walking at a ruler's side. Their towering silhouettes and calm composure made them living sculptures. Grace balanced on muscle, silence filled with authority. When visiting dignitaries entered the halls of Berlin or Vienna, the first to greet them wasn't a herald or guard. It was a massive dog whose gaze spoke without words. You are seen. You are measured. You are allowed to pass. By the 17th and 18th centuries, the Great Dane's reputation had eclipsed its origins as a hunting hound. It was now a dog of prestige, bred not for the field, but for the court. Kings and princes used them as symbols of refinement and fearlessness, a reminder that true nobility is both majestic and merciful. They walked the same halls as ministers and monarchs, their collars encrusted with silver, their loyalty worth more than gold. Yet even among such wealth, they remained humble. They asked for no throne, no glory, only purpose. In Germany, the breed reached its zenith under the patronage of aristocratic houses. The Grand Dukes of Saxony and the noble families of Württemberg considered no estate complete without at least one Deutsche Dogge, as they were called. They were companions of huntsmen, confidants of kings, and guardians of sleeping children. In France, travelers called them Le Grand Danois, the Great Dane, a name that would soon spread across Europe, carried by admiration and myth. To own one was to possess more than a dog. It was to hold a fragment of majesty. Artists painted them beside rulers in portraits, their vast frames contrasting the frailty of human power. Poets compared their devotion to the loyalty that kings demanded, but rarely received from men. They stood as reminders that respect cannot be commanded. It must be earned. Even outside the royal courts their legend grew. In villages, stories spread of Danes that fought off bandits or stood vigil over fallen masters until morning light. They became living metaphors for faith, a creature too noble to betray even in death. One account tells of a noble's Great Dane who stood guard for 3 days beside his master's carriage after an ambush. When found by rescuers, the dog refused to leave the body until his last breath. The story spread across Europe, sealing the breed's reputation as the most faithful of companions. But what truly separated the Great Dane from other royal dogs wasn't just its courage, it was temperament, the balance between ferocity and serenity. They could face a charging boar or calmly sit at a child's feet within the same hour. They did not confuse power with aggression. They understood that protection is not violence, it is restraint. That rare composure became their greatest mark of nobility. While other breeds barked and postured, the Dane simply was. It didn't need to prove strength. It was strength refined into grace. By the 19th century, the Great Dane was no longer a secret of the elite. Their fame had crossed oceans, reaching England and America, where they were celebrated as the Apollo of dogs. The nickname was perfect, godlike in form, yet humble in soul. Every generation that met them saw something divine, a living monument to courage without cruelty, power without pride, loyalty without limits. They had once guarded kings, now they guarded families, and soon they would reveal to the modern world that the mightiest of dogs could also be the gentlest of friends. Time changes kingdoms, but not character. And as Europe's wars faded into memory, the Great Dane faced a new destiny, not in the battlefield or the forest, but in the heart of the home. The same traits that once made them legendary hunters now made them perfect protectors. Their courage remained, their loyalty deepened, and their strength took on a new purpose, not to conquer, but to comfort. As firearms replaced spears and boar hunts vanished into history, the Great Dane could have disappeared too. But the breed refused to fade. Instead, it evolved. From the hunter's shadow, it stepped into the light, into the role of guardian, companion, and friend. Families who had once admired the dog from a distance now welcomed it into their lives, and what they discovered astonished them. Beneath the towering frame and thunderous bark was a creature of remarkable gentleness, a being who seemed to understand the fragile hearts it now protected. Gone were the forests and hunts, replaced by gardens and nurseries. Yet the Great Dane's instincts didn't vanish. They transformed. It learned the boundaries of human space, the rhythm of domestic life. It became a silent observer, alert yet patient, proud yet peaceful. Those who lived with one noticed something almost human in its awareness. The way it adjusted its size to the world around it, lowering its head to meet a child's gaze, stepping softly through narrow halls, curling its massive body into corners as if to make itself smaller. There was no arrogance in its stature, only grace. The breed's transformation mirrored humanity's own, from the age of conquest to the age of compassion. And in that transition, the Great Dane became not less noble, but more so. Even in its moments of stillness, the presence of a Dane carried meaning. It didn't guard by barking, but by existing, by being there, steady and sure. When danger approached, it rose without hesitation, placing itself between threat and loved ones as if fulfilling an ancient oath. In one 19th century diary, a woman wrote of her Great Dane named Apollo, who stood by her carriage every evening, refusing to move until she was safely inside. She described him not as a pet, but as a sentinel of love. And that is what the Great Dane became. Not just a protector of bodies, but of peace itself. Their reputation grew as family dogs of uncommon reliability. They watched over estates and city homes alike, never restless, never cruel. They seemed to understand that true protection is quiet, that power, when pure, has no need to shout. Children grew up leaning against them. Writers found inspiration in their poise. Photographers captured them beside soldiers, artists, and poets, the perfect symbol of strength with soul. During both World Wars, Great Danes again appeared beside men in uniform, not as fighters, but as companions, therapy before the word existed. Their calm presence soothed the wounded. Their loyalty gave soldiers a reason to smile. They were no longer the hounds of kings. They had become the healers of ordinary men. And yet one thing never changed, their unshakable devotion. There are countless accounts of Danes waiting for returning masters who never came home, refusing to leave doorsteps or train stations for days. To them, love was a mission, not a moment. The Great Dane's transformation wasn't just physical, it was moral. It proved that evolution doesn't always mean change in form. Sometimes it means the discovery of purpose. They had conquered beasts, guarded thrones, and endured wars. But their greatest victory was learning to guard hearts. Today, when a Great Dane walks beside its owner, it carries more than its size. It carries centuries of trust, of service, of silent understanding between human and hound. It is a living testament to the idea that power, at its highest form, is peace. They may no longer chase boars through forests, but they still stand for the same promise: to protect, to watch, and to love without hesitation. And in a world that often mistakes loudness for bravery, the Great Dane remains a gentle reminder that true strength doesn't roar. It breathes, it waits, and it endures. To the world, they look like giants, imposing, majestic, unshakable. To those who know them, they are softness wrapped in strength. The Great Dane is a paradox in motion, a body built for battle that chooses peace instead. Their size demands attention, their eyes disarm it. Deep, amber, and aware, they see more than faces, they read hearts. They do not rush to judge or react. They wait, they listen, they understand. Families often say that living with a Great Dane changes the rhythm of a home. There's a quiet confidence that settles into the walls. They don't fill a room with noise, but with presence. When they walk through doorways, you feel safe. When they rest beside you, you feel seen. They are not clingy, but they are never far. If you rise from your chair, they glance up as if to say, "I'm here, go ahead." If you cry, they move closer without a sound. If danger approaches, their calm becomes steel. And though their bark can shake windows, it is rarely used in anger. They bark to announce, not to threaten, to remind the world that this space is protected by love. Children grow up leaning against them like pillars of warmth. They learn trust from a dog that could crush, but chooses to care. Parents watch in awe as those massive heads bow to accept tiny hands as gentle as falling snow. Even their playfulness feels measured, a dance between joy and awareness. They match their strength to yours, never too rough, never too fast. It's as if some ancient memory whispers inside them. Power is a gift. Use it to protect. Yet their gentleness is not passive. They feel deeply. They sense stress, tension, and sadness like weather changes in the air. Many owners tell stories of Danes who refused to leave their side through illness, loss, or fear. They don't offer comfort in grand gestures. They offer it in silence, in weight, in warmth. Scientists have long noted their empathy, their ability to mirror human emotion and adjust their behavior accordingly. But those who live with them don't need science to explain it. They simply call it connection. Because when a Great Dane looks at you, it doesn't see a master. It sees a bond, a partnership built on trust that runs both ways. This is why they're often called Velcro dogs, despite their stature. They follow you from room to room, not out of neediness, but devotion. They believe that their place is where you are, because that's where they belong. Their loyalty is quiet, steady, absolute. If you're happy, they celebrate. If you're hurting, they watch the door until you return to yourself. But the Great Dane's gentle nature also demands understanding. They do not respond to harshness. Their souls withdraw from it. They thrive on respect, patience, and tone. To earn a Dane's trust is to become worthy of it, and that may be one of the greatest honors a human can receive. Even in their maturity, when joints stiffen and steps slow, their eyes still hold that same unwavering light. They watch their families grow older and their children move away, content just to know that their watch was well kept. When the time comes and they rest for the last time, their absence feels like a room gone silent. The floor feels larger, the house colder, the air emptier. Because a Great Dane doesn't just occupy space, it defines it. Their gentleness is not a trait that can be bred or taught. It's the result of centuries of evolution refined by trust. From the courts of kings to the couches of families, they learned the greatest truth a protector can know, that the strongest guardians are those who can love most deeply. They are not just dogs. They are companions that remind us what dignity looks like when it has a heartbeat. They are living proof that kindness can be mighty. And their legacy, like their footsteps, is impossible to forget. Every age leaves behind its monuments. Some are carved in stone, some are written in books, and some, like the Great Dane, are written in the heartbeat of loyalty itself. Through centuries of war, empire, peace, and progress, the Great Dane has stood beside humankind as both protector and reflection, a living portrait of what strength can become when guided by compassion. They were born from battlefields but shaped by love. From the hunter's forest to the family's home, they carried forward one unbreakable truth: that true greatness is not in power, but in purpose. In today's world, they no longer guard kings or chase boars through shadowed woods. Their watch is quieter now, a watch over laughter, over childhood, over life itself. And yet, every time a Great Dane rises to stand between its family and danger, history stirs once more. You can see it in the way they move, deliberate, calm, and confident. You can feel it when their head rests gently on your lap, a weight that says, "You're safe." No crown, no command, no reward, just devotion. They remind us that nobility is not a title, but a way of being. The Great Dane's legacy reaches far beyond breed or beauty. Artists paint them as symbols of dignity. Writers describe them as sentinels of the soul. Families call them the heart that walks on four legs. Their lifespan may be brief, often only a decade, but what they give in those years outweighs a lifetime of lesser love. They live every day with a purpose that never fades, to guard, to comfort, to belong. When one passes, the silence it leaves behind feels immense. Those who have loved a Great Dane often describe the loss not as losing a pet, but as losing presence itself, as if the very air had grown thinner. And yet, even in absence, they remain. Their loyalty becomes memory, and memory becomes strength. There are countless tales of Great Danes saving lives, pulling children from traffic, shielding owners from intruders, waking families in burning homes. But perhaps their greatest gift is not the lives they've saved, but the peace they've created. Because every person who has lived with one knows the same quiet miracle. That when a Great Dane stands beside you, the world feels balanced again. They embody an ideal humanity often forgets, that power without gentleness is meaningless, and gentleness without strength is fragile. The Great Dane is the bridge between the two. Look into their eyes, and you see something ageless. It's not animal instinct, it's something closer to wisdom, a knowing that runs deeper than training or breed, a knowing that says, "I was made to protect, and I always will." Their story is a mirror of our own evolution, from survival to civilization, from dominance to empathy. They've watched us rise, stumble, and change, yet never once abandoned their post. Even now, in the 21st century, the Great Dane walks among us as a reminder of what loyalty once meant, and what it still can. They may no longer stand at the side of emperors, but they stand at the side of something greater, the human heart. And perhaps that is their final triumph, that after centuries of serving kings, they chose to serve families. After a lifetime of power, they chose love. When we call them gentle giants, we speak not just of size, but of spirit, of a legacy that towers over history itself. The Great Dane's journey began as a symbol of might. It ends as a symbol of mercy. And though the centuries will continue to turn, one truth will remain as eternal as the bond they forged with us. That somewhere in the world, a Great Dane will rise to its feet at the sound of danger, not because it was told to, but because it was born to. That is the legacy of the Titan, a creature of strength and serenity, a monument not built by hands, but by love that refused to end. And as long as there are hearts in need of guarding, as long as courage still walks this earth, the Great Dane, the gentle Titan, will never truly fade.